channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. This channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. So if you watched my last episode, I believe that's 52, I was working on a tulip jumper that was almost done. I was on the second sleeve. My goal was to finish it by the end of March 2021, and thinking that I would probably finish it by the end of the week. And I am so happy to say that it is done and blocked, ends are woven in. I feel like sleeves actually go pretty quick for me. I used to feel like they would take forever, but that was before I started knitting socks. And essentially, sleeves are just like bigger socks. And if you're knitting them not in fingering or sock weight yarn, they go much quicker. So I am wearing my finished tulip jumper and I love it. Granted, I've only been able to wear it once so far, but it fits really well. It's super comfortable. And I love the modifications that I made to it. I will try to get up a little bit here so you can see this beautiful hem. That's what drew me to the jumper or sweater in the first place. I'll just go over some of the details and some of the modifications I made. But yes, I really, really love it. The gauge for this sweater is 17 stitches by 24 rounds in 4 inches stockinette blocked on US 8 needles. That's 5mm needles. The pattern does call for you to use like a more DK weight yarn plus like a lace weight mohair to get like a worsted gauge. I did not do that. I used a DK weight yarn. I did get gauge on the US 8 needles, and I did do a gauge swatch. So it just ends up being a slightly looser fabric, so not as dense. And the ribbing calls for a US 6 or 4mm size needles, and I went down 2 more sizes to do a US 4 for the ribbing and the neckline. Just looking at some of the projects, it looked like the neckline was pretty wide and I wanted it a little closer fit, so I didn't change any of the stitch counts or anything like that. I just went down on needle size, and I really like how this came out. I did do a little bit, a few more rounds for the ribbing in the neckline, so it was a little bit longer than what it says in the pattern. But yes, it fits really nicely. The yarn I used is the Yarn Collective Bloomsbury DK in the colorway Copper, and that is 100% superwash merino. It came out really beautiful. I just love this colorway. I did alternate skeins for the entire project. In the raglan section, I did kind of the traditional one where you knit with one skein, and then when you get to the beginning of the round, join your second one, and when you get back to the beginning of the round, twist the stitches on each other, and then take the next yarn forward, and you just keep alternating that way. And I was able to hide that twist in one of the raglan like increase sections. I actually don't remember which one it's on. And then once I split for the sleeves and got to the body, there I did the helical knitting method, where you knit with one and then get to the next one at the beginning of the round, join it in, and then when you get to 3 stitches before that next yarn, you slip those 3 from the left to the right hand needle, and then you pick up that working yarn and then go again. So you do like keep going. And that worked out really well for me. And then I did the same thing in the sleeves. I did helical knitting in the sleeves as well. For the ribbing, I just ended up using one ball from that one. And I think it did really well, since there's so much color variation in these skeins. There's like darker browns, more coppery red tones, and it just broke that up really nicely across the entire body and the sleeves. I don't believe the pattern tells you a yoke depth for each pattern. If I am wrong, it's in the pattern, but I don't believe there was yoke depth. So what I did is I looked at some of my other sweaters that I have made, and just at some of the other patterns for a similar size, and checked the yoke depth for that, just to make sure that when I got to separating the sleeves, that it would be at a depth that I wanted for my fit. So my yoke depth, I think it ended up being 8.5, maybe 8.5 inches. And I did knit the smallest size 1, that's supposed to have a finished bust circumference of 34.6 inches. And that gives me about 2.5 inches of positive ease. So then I went for a length that was kind of between cropped and full length. And so I stopped approximately 12 inches from the armpit to before the ribbing would start. I kind of wanted to hit about hip. So my hip bone is like here, which is right about before the ribbing starts. And I probably could have even gone a little bit shorter, but what I was aiming for was a sweater that would stop before like pockets. So you see how like this goes right over the pocket. So I probably could have stopped maybe an inch or 2 earlier if I wanted to, but that was kind of my goal, was to be able to layer it and then have it be at like pocket length. Sleeves I did a little differently. I didn't do any of the decreases because I don't like tight fitting sleeves. And I did pick up extra stitches in the armpit, left a long tail so that I could duplicate stitch, closed any holes in there. You can see it's very closed up. There are no holes in my armpit. And I knit, I think I did like 90 rounds before I did like a quick set of decreases and then knit the ribbing for the cuff. Something that I'm not sure about is when I count 90 rounds, but I'm doing helical knitting, I feel like I should be knitting, it's actually more than 90 rounds, because when you slip over the stitches, isn't that like technically 2 rounds in that part? Like if I'm counting just straight up and I keep going around and around. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure, but I did knit the 2 sleeves the same because I would just put a marker at every 10, and that just is what worked out for me. And then for the ribbed cuff, I think I did it like 4.5 inches maybe, and then did the tubular bind off for that. I like my sleeves longer. I feel like usually I have an issue with sleeves being too short. And this way it's longer. Like when I stretch my arms out, they don't like shrink up on me. And then if I wanted to pull them down a little, I'm not like causing a lot of stress on this join. And then if I wanted to, I could even fold that cuff up if I wanted it to be a little more like bracelet length. I think that is what it's called, bracelet length. Anyway, super cozy, really comfortable. It's perfect for spring weather or really year round. And yeah, I finished with the sweater weighing 277 grams of this DK weight yarn. I feel like, oh yeah, so like blocked measurements from this neckline of the collar to the armpit was about 9 inches. My sleeve ended up being, I think, 25 inches, and then a 4.5 inch cuff. And then my circumference ended up being about 34 inches or 17 inches flat, which is pretty close to the pattern. And yeah, for the body circumference, not for the other parts. But yeah, it fits really well. I love it a lot, and I can see this color just being easy to throw over everything. I feel like brown is kind of my neutral. And I look forward to making another one. I feel like a worsted weight one will be really nice as well for cooler weather. It wouldn't be significantly different from this one, but maybe have a slightly more sweatshirty feel, especially if I just use the US 8 needles again, just keep everything the same as I did. And it'll probably, I mean, being a slightly heavier weight yarn, it will be slightly bigger, but I don't have to change like really any of my measurements or anything like that. So yeah, I look forward to doing that maybe in the fall or end of summer. I did start this project, let's see, end of February. So it took me a little more than a month. I mean, I wasn't working on it constantly every day. And then being a slightly shorter sweater, I feel like it doesn't take as long either. And granted, my sleeves are longer, but that didn't take very long either. So yeah, I highly recommend. I feel like one part that's a little confusing is doing this hemline. Melody Hoffman, the designer, does have a video tutorial for it, which I found more helpful than the written instructions and the pattern. Something that was confusing is when she referred to different step numbers, they don't correlate between the video and the written pattern. I may be incorrect on that. I could have just been confused, but that's how it came across to me. So I did have to watch it a few times. But once I got it, it made a lot of sense. So yeah, I think this was a super fun one to make. The raglan shaping was fun because I haven't done that in a long time. I've been knitting a lot of circular yokes for top-down sweaters, and yeah, it fits really well. So I hope you enjoyed this finished project video. I guess it's an FO video. FO stands for finished object. I tend to call all my stuff finished projects, not finished objects. I don't know. I just feel like it's like a project, there's like process to the project, right? But when it's just like, when I say object, it just feels less processy. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you are having a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.